Obviously, you go in there, you drive in there hard, drove in a little bit too hard. We push up into each other. You know, I get into his door, and we wrecked. Did I intentionally wreck him? No, I did not intentionally do that. If I was going to do that, I would have hit him in the left rear tire. I feel like I hit him in the door, and it's hard racing at that point.
What was your reaction when you realized he was injured?
You bummed out. You know, he's a peer. I've known him for years. You know, so you don't ever want to see someone get hurt. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to wreck anyone. You know, it's just the last thing we ever want to see. You know, and obviously, you know, we want to see Denny back out there racing as soon as possible.
That's some of what Joey Logano had to say about what transpired in Fontana. With a potential victory at stake, he felt justified in his methods and is not backing away from the way he raced in the closing laps. But like everything else, there are two sides to every story. So what's Denny Hamlin's interpretation of what happened? For that answer, we turn our attention back to Marty Smith. And Marty, we heard Logano's explanation of what happened. How much is Denny buying into it?
He's not at all, Mike. In fact, he said today they do not have an agreement. He said it's a situation where they will simply agree to disagree. And when I sat down with Denny, I asked him about the evolution of the wreck and its aftermath. And as we got into the part about how Joey Logano raced him and what that ultimately meant for him, he got really emotional.
I struggle with some things that he said. Is that, you know, what he said was the heat of the moment. You listen to his radio, and his first reaction after he got into us was that now we're even, or that's what he gets, or whatever. So immediately then, he was taking responsibility that he did do it on purpose. So then there was an interview right after he got out of the car. He said that's what he gets, and that, you know, if it wasn't for Bristol, then maybe we would have raced clean. So that, once again, says he did it on purpose. Then he does another interview. He's changed. I don't know if he's showered or not, but it's obviously a time down the road. It's not when he's hot. He went in his hauler, he'd come back out, done another interview, and says, if it wasn't for Bristol, things would have been different. So I'm confused. In the interview there, he's saying it wasn't intentional. But 3 different instances, he had a chance to say it wasn't intentional, and all 3 times he said it was. So there's no doubt in my mind that it was intentional. You know, he just wasn't going to lose to Denny Hamlin on that day, especially after the history that we had had. And I had all intentions of if Joey won that race, I was going to stand out on pit road and shake that guy's hand saying, you know, it's settled. This is the way we should be racing, and congratulations. But it didn't end that way. It ended with me leaving in a helicopter heading to a hospital and him getting in an altercation with someone else. So I think there was an opportunity there to let things go and let's move on. But I was just discouraged that he just couldn't leave well enough alone. Another thing that bugged me is that he says in his interview that these cars are pretty safe, so I'm sure he's fine. That is taken for granted. What we do is just that we're Superman and we can't be hurt. That's why people don't wreck each other on 200-mile-per-hour racetracks. It's because this is what can happen. You got to think about that as a driver. You can't just throw caution to the wind because no one's gotten killed in 10 years. It's okay to just wreck someone at 200. It's not okay because, you know, I have a daughter now. I'd like to do things with her when I get older. So don't take my health for granted just because you want to retaliate.
Seems like you're getting pretty emotional about this. How personal is this for you?
Well, it's personal because, you know, I'm the one that has to go through rehab 3 times a week. You know, I'm the one that's got to wear this brace for 6 weeks or however long. He gets to go to a racetrack. I'm the one that has to deal with the repercussions from this wreck. He's going to move on as if nothing happened this weekend at Martinsville.
Hamlin said in the aftermath of his run-in with Logano at both Bristol and then Fontana, so much has been made about Joey Logano standing up for himself. Hamlin said, in fact, this is about other drivers standing up for themselves. He said that's the point. He also noted it might be pertinent for Logano to switch sponsors with Juan Pablo Montoya over the next month or so. And as we know, Mike, Juan Pablo Montoya's sponsor is Target.
At least he has a sense of humor still about him. Listening to Denny, it's pretty clear to me he's not letting Joey off the hook for what happened on the racetrack. No. But how much blame does he put on Logano for the injury?
None. He doesn't blame Joey Logano one bit for the fact that he was injured, but he does put the blame squarely on him, as you could tell there in the interview, for the wreck itself. He actually went so far as to call it intentional.